What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. So let's talk about the relationship between Zach Wilson and Robert Saleh for a moment. Me personally, I would probably use the term handcuffed as the metaphor for the relationship between the two of them. Which, by the way, this whole conversation, rant, discussion, whatever you want to call it, is centered around just 3 weeks into the NFL season. And seeing what we've seen from Zach Wilson at quarterback, I can't help but think that Robert Saleh is on the hot seat, and he may not even survive the NFL season. There's a couple of things working against him, but let's kind of go back to the beginning basis here. And there's some writing on the wall that maybe we should have paid attention to and seen. One of the biggest ones was the rumor that came out over the offseason after we let LaFleur go, that there were major differences in opinion on who should have been our quarterback when we had the number 2 pick and we opted to go with Zach Wilson. Now, I couldn't recall and I couldn't really find the specific article where I had seen it before that mentioned who the other preferred option was. But when you go back and think about it, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and then Mac Jones was starting to kind of creep up. But realistically, it was those 3 guys: Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson. Those were going to be the 3 options always. It was interesting because for the entirety of Justin Fields' pathway to the NFL, he's always been kind of just behind Trevor Lawrence in terms of quarterback rankings and where everybody assumed they would ultimately go in the draft. That didn't happen. Zach Wilson leapfrogged everybody. And so, logically thinking back on it, I would assume the divide and the tear within our front office would have been between Zach Wilson, unproven product who had a stellar year, but nothing of substance, behind that, versus Justin Fields, who's been in a harder division. He's played consistently. We've seen how he's dominated. We knew there was going to be work as a passer, but you had a strong basis to work with. I preferably wanted to go with Trey Lance. I thought it was the perfect combination of a guy who's gotten experience, but can offer some Josh Allen type ability and had a huge upside. Nonetheless, Zach Wilson wins out. So just knowing that LaFleur was potentially against not only drafting him, but also was inept and didn't show an ability to go out there and even develop Zach Wilson in the slightest. He literally regressed in every possible way from his rookie year up until now. Well, up until I should say this year. We've seen a little bit of progress be made, but it still looks absolutely terrible, which speaks to how far Zach Wilson has fallen. But we should start there. That was a major piece of information that we didn't get soon enough as fans, that really would have altered the perception of everything. This is supposed to be Robert Saleh's guy. This is technically supposed to be Joe Douglas's guy after he opted to not double down on Sam Darnold. So to know that Joe Douglas might have been going one way, Robert Saleh might have been going another, I'm comfortable saying him and Joe Douglas maybe would have been in lockstep, but that Mike LaFleur went to go in another direction, and then of course Woody Johnson at the top probably was opting to go in a different direction, doesn't paint this picture in a great light at all. Robert Saleh was almost doomed from the start that your franchise, the best option you're going to have is getting a franchise quarterback after, not being able to grab it, Trevor Lawrence. But your best option to go out there and find the next best available franchise quarterback fell through your fingers. And now, taking a look at that quarterback class, things don't look great anyways. Justin Fields is blaming coaching for why he's looking like a robot out there. Doesn't look like he's resembling anything close to the Lamar Jackson, Mike Vick type comparisons he was getting outside of the rushing ability. Trey Lance lost his job to essentially a Mr. Irrelevant in the draft. And then you take a look at Mac Jones, and at one point he got replaced by Bailey Zapp, who Bill Belichick decided to play chicken with and cut him and their other quarterback, Malik Cunningham, only leaving Mac Jones on the roster before bringing them back. So it's not like the New York Jets absolutely struck out by any measure, but you'd have to imagine if we went with any other quarterback in the draft, this looks like a very different, picture for the New York Jets with the weaponry and everything we've assembled. So, you take a look at Robert Saleh, immediate division and issues from day one, him stepping into the building. He's done, and I'll stand by this forever, a phenomenal job of being able to galvanize this organization from the front office staff, which you can definitely give more of that to Joe Douglas, but to the coaching staff with all of the drama that we had there. Drunk coaches, guys getting arrested on DUIs, gambling scenarios coming up that's, coaches are being banned for, deaths within the coaching ranks. He pretty much got the entire gambit. And then you're talking about as well the early portions of his tenure not having anything close to top tier talent whatsoever. He's literally developed this defense before our eyes. The offense was always going to be in question, right? It's been very few and in between defensive coaches that you see go on to be either able to develop a consistent offense, not that it has to be top tier, but just a consistent offense, or a quarterback. Maybe you don't give the credit to Sean McDermott. Maybe you don't give the credit to guys like a Mike Tomlin, for example. But again, I can't even really think of a guy off the top of my head in the coaching ranks that have really done just an absolute amazing job. Mostly the offensive coordinators or the quarterback coach will end up soaking up a lot of that credit, as they generally should. But still, this is the failings of having a defensive-minded head coach in the NFL, is that if they can't ever develop a legit offensive acumen, their input, their ability to diagnose and understand where things are going wrong and how to adjust, correct it, and being able to go out there and manipulate things to their liking, you're pretty much, just standing on an island with lava getting ready to consume you all around. It's pretty disappointing when it gets to that point. And, some of the recent press conferences from Robert Saleh within these last 2 weeks, you definitely get the feeling he doesn't want to be there. He kind of already knows 1,000,001 of the questions that are going to come his way, 90% of them revolving around Zach Wilson. It definitely seems like he doesn't want to throw him under the bus, but some of the things he's saying about Zach Wilson feeds into what I'm hearing from you guys when you're dropping comments, in that this doesn't even feel like a Robert Saleh decision. This feels like something above, even Joe Douglas's head. I don't think he's married to Zach Wilson, even though that was his, his quarterback pick, the guy that was supposed to be the franchise builder. Even though that was his pick, he's been around guys in this league that if they make a mistake as a GM, they're cutting bait if they have the opportunity to do so, and they're going on to find the next solution. I would definitely feel like that was Joe Douglas, right? Aaron Rodgers being the main, culprit for what that solution was supposed to be. And who would have ever predicted a season-ending injury, 4 snaps into the NFL season? But this also goes into, again, some of the issues I have with Robert Saleh. We have never really had great backup plans when our plan A goes down. Most recently, obviously, we have Aaron Rodgers. You ideally wanted another veteran in there. We opted for Tim Boyle, but then we're doubling down and saying that Zach Wilson is going to be our undisputed guy for the season. And again, Robert Saleh may be handcuffed here. This could be a complete Woody Johnson ask, make it work, your job's on the line type of situation. Who knows? But you have the Aaron Rodgers, Zach Wilson, backup quarterback situation. There never should have been a situation where Zach Wilson would have needed to see the field unless 2 guys ahead of him got injured. You take a look at the running back situation. We failed to really find a legit partner for Breece Hall. Now, you can argue Michael Carter if you really, love the upside with a guy like him and trust the rookie season tape. But James Robinson was a failure to replace Breece Hall. Dalvin Cook is looking like that next failure of a project. Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis was supposed to be the Batman and Robin duo. Corey Davis up and retired on us. Maybe that was an indictment of what he was seeing within the facility the handful of times that he actually showed up. Or maybe he has some legit personal issues. You've had Garrett Wilson blow up already. You're seeing Michael Carter blow up. It's impacting the roster. But, backup plans haven't gone well. Mike LaFleur, that entirely young offensive coaching staff comes in. Greg Knapp is supposed to be the guiding light for that. He goes down. You have no replacement, no other assistance that comes in. And it even gets so bad that you have to bring in Zach Wilson's personal quarterback coach, which he's cutting ties with what he generally does to, make a living and survive in order to try to get his guy back on track. I don't want to call it ineptitude, but there's almost a certain loyalty to a fault where he's going to have to go down with the ship, whether he likes it or not. Now, again, if this is a mandate, if we come out and we hear him talk about this, or it slips from Woody Johnson or Joe Douglas or somebody within the building, or another source with just, credible information, I'll look at this completely different. But as it stands now, one of the reporters asked it beautifully. He speaks about how well they're seeing Zach Wilson do in practice, the improvements that's being made, how he's preparing for these NFL Sundays, and, really a lot of these primetime slots that we originally expected to have. But why we feel so comfortable not willing to change or make adjustments whatsoever when all that really matters is what's being done on Sundays. And, we kind of beat around the bush on the whole topic. So knowing that Robert Saleh's Achilles heel, as it has been for Rex Ryan and Todd Bowles and, plenty of the guys before him, the quarterback being his Achilles heel hurts quite a bit, right? Robert Saleh is a guy that I've fallen in love with as a coach. Thinks he's an excellent guy just as a human being. As a head coach, he's starting to get into that realm of, even Rex Ryan succeeded very early and, generally often, and things fell off the way because of bad drafting. If he had a Joe Douglas, maybe things look very different for a guy like Rex Ryan. But at this point, I'm not going to blame the talent that's been centered around him, even though people, crap on the offensive line. And it's legit arguments. There's still more than enough talent, not only on that offensive line, but in the wide receiver, running back, and tight end room to go out here and succeed quite often. I still stand by it. At this point, you don't even have to give us an average quarterback. If you give us, whoever's ranked 27th right now, I guarantee you see some legit production from him. And, the arguments have been made, not only by reporters, but, all of us out here. Any other quarterback in this offense is we're going to see things humming along. There's probably going to be hiccups. You'll see more interceptions than maybe what we want. A variety of other issues, chemistry lacking, being out of sync, etc. But your offense is going to become a lot less unpredictable all of a sudden because, maybe they double down and they stack the box and see if this new quarterback can beat them. But you're not going to necessarily know how to attack him. If he can start hitting some deep bombs and some stuff that we're seeing Zach Wilson miss religiously, it changes the whole complexity of the offense. You don't have to run every time on first down now because you want to limit how exposed Zach Wilson is to having to go out there and, attack a defense. And really, that's my huge problem with the offense right now. We are not attacking anybody. We are hoping that they make enough mistakes that we can get down the field, score maybe 10, 13 points, and we expect the defense to hold off the rest of the way. It's not a recipe for success. Robert Saleh's had a number of failings. Early on, it was definitely that the team looked undisciplined. If you remember all of the penalties we used to stack up, those have kind of been fixed. You take a look at the inability to run, the inability to pass. Those have essentially been fixed. I'll continue to argue. You place any other quarterback in here, and you're going to see a successful team. So I would say everything's been fixed enough for us to say that we could be a playoff team, but the quarterback position. And unfortunately, everything that Robert Saleh has said in these recent weeks has really handcuffed him, as I said, to Zach Wilson. And at this point, you are looking at a reset. I would say he's the coach with the hottest seat in the NFL right now. And, it's tough because he can't even necessarily make a legit change on this roster, right? A lot of people want to go the trade route. Kirk Cousins is the hot name with the Vikings having that 0-3 start. Get him in here. We can immediately turn around our fortunes. But we have to forget there's some kind of issue within the contract that we or the trade agreement that we had surrounding Aaron Rodgers, where even though he's already on IR and like all this other stuff, there's something that's holding back our ability to use our first round draft pick. So essentially you're looking at somebody who's willing to give up their quarterback for a third round pick or lower, unless we want to give up a future first round pick, which I wouldn't, not falling in love with that idea. Current in-house options, only Tim Boyle. He's already said he's shut that down. And then you look at the free agent market, you have Matt Ryan piping up talking about I haven't looked into it. I just kind of seen the headlines, but basically that he's not interested in the New York Jets whatsoever. You have Carson Wentz, who again the sources were that he reached out to the Jets. The Jets are advising they're only looking for somebody who's willing to be a backup. And so the backup conversation out there doesn't look great. Carson Wentz, Colt McCoy, maybe a Jameis Winston if you want to get tricky. So it really does just kind of suck that there's nowhere to necessarily turn to. I'm pulling the trigger regardless because Zach Wilson ranks 34th out of 34 quarterbacks. Go figure. So how much worse can you really get, right? It's the same thing with like the Dwayne Brown stat that I posted. He ranked last in pass block win rate. There's nowhere left to go but up. Didn't matter who you trolled out. I mean, for as bad as Billy Turner would have been, does he come in automatically and become the worst pass blocking left tackle? Maybe, maybe not. But again, what do you literally have to risk when a guy is performing at the league bottom at his position? So I don't know. I'm considering it. We'll see what happens. I'm gonna try to give it till the end of the trade deadline in week 8. But I'm gonna start preparing to potentially drop some videos for coaching candidates we might want to be aware of. Again, if it comes, I'll be shocked, but not really if Robert Saleh ends up getting fired in, let's say, the next 2 to 3 weeks. We've seen how Woody Johnson reacts when the New York Jets perform to what we would call reality versus what the expectations may be around us when we get a little taste of success. But you guys be the judge. Let me know. Kind of been all over the place here, but just kind of had to get some more of my thoughts down out here. Let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. What would be your best moves in order to avoid, this whole Zach Wilson debacle, and how you kind of feel about what's going on at our head coach position right now. I'll catch you guys again. Peace.